Right, well, it's been a while since I've done a video. Busy, things to do at home, and hadn't had much time to do any vids, unfortunately. But I'm hopefully trying to squeeze one in here. It's obviously another Bangood kit. What else? What else would I do? Actually, I'll tell a lie. I do actually have a kit that I got from Amazon, which I'll do for another video. I won't say what it is yet. It looks quite interesting. We'll go on to that another day. I made this a little while ago. It was I did a video on it, and it's basically one of those things that nobody cares about anymore, fidget spinners. And yeah, there you go. You can see it lights up, and there's all sorts of pretty patterns it does. I think they change as time goes on. One of the problems with this thing is that if you spin it too much, one of the batteries flies out, and it's got a battery at either end, and that, I guess, adds the weight that it needs to spin evenly. It was also a real pain having to solder the bearing in the middle to the board to get it in there, but I did that in the end. And it's quite long, so unless you've got fairly large hands, I've got reasonably large hands, but you can see I'm really stretching to hold it there. So it's not much of a fidget spinner. It's probably better off just on the table, and yeah, that's a 5-minute wonder, isn't it? So there you go. That's a little fidget spinner that I got from Banggood. Inexpensive as always, quite pretty. You can see, I doubt you can see actually, the LEDs individually flashing inside those packages. But yeah, so it has an off button, which is quite good. Software button, but there you go. So I saw this one on Banggood, which I thought, well, this is probably a bit more reasonable because it's going to be smaller. And yeah, it's another fidget spinner, I know. But I thought I'd give this one a go. But as you can see from the size of it, it's going to be a lot easier to spin. So we have the obligatory clear ceramic or acrylic rather casing, and we have a PCB. You can see there's a small IC package there. I guess they are going to be for the LEDs, and possibly some caps or resistors there. We'll get it all out. Let's have a look. Again, it's all surface mount, and these are really quite tiny little LEDs there. Same principle as the other one. What else have we got? We've got all the necessary hardware, and we have, oh, these are actually resistors. Let's just try and see what the number is on them. 121. I should know what that is now. Is it 1.2K? Something like, I don't know. Probably not. And then there's the IC. See if I can read that. No, I can't. Completely illegible to my eyes. Same sort of setup, little button, switch it on and off, and as I say, all the hardware. And we do have 2 batteries again as before, and they'll be placed there and there. I'm guessing from the balance point of view, because obviously the batteries will be the primary weight, because the bearing will be stuck right in the middle, and that's going to be another soldering joy, hurrah. Yeah, I'm not sure how that will work in terms of the balance of the thing. I don't suppose it really makes any difference because it's triangular. And yeah, there we go. So it's a very, very straightforward little kit, and I thought it'd be a quickie to put together and let you know I'm still alive. And yeah, so we'll have a go at putting this one together. Another fidget spinner. Right, okay, let's see if we can't throw this thing together. I'm actually going to start off, I don't know whether to start off with the LEDs or the chip, because if you look at them, there's not much of a gap between where the LEDs go and where the chip goes.
but I don't think it's going to be too much of a problem. I'm going to need my tweezers for this. I am deeply unprepared. Let's see if I can find a half decent pair of tweezers. Oh, it's just got so much junk everywhere. The LEDs, I think they're going to be multicoloured ones. I don't know if that's in focus or not. They're going to be multicoloured ones. You'll see that there's a little notch there which corresponds to where the cathode is, I believe. And basically the triangle needs to be on this side of the board, not that side. So let's get these out of the packet. And tip them out. Where are they? Well, let's just take them out one at a time as we need them. There's one that's come out. Let's see if we can't focus on that. So there you can see there's the notch at that corner there. That will go on the board like that. That's basically the orientation. The actual connectors on the bottom of the... Let's see if I can get this to focus. Let's just put it in my hand there. Yeah, you can see that those connectors are desperately tiny. So this is going to be interesting, as always. I don't remember the other ones being like that on the other fidget spinner, but I'm guessing that they probably were. I haven't done anything for quite a while as far as making stuff is concerned, so I forget what I've done so far. Right, so let's move all this junk out of the way because we're going to focus on LEDs at this moment. And I'm kind of jabbering away because I'm waiting for my soldering iron to warm up. And I also seem to have lost my solder, so let's go and find that. Right, I'll put my magnifying glass on top of it because I'm going to need it at any rate. And I'm hoping that you're going to be able to see what I see to a lesser or greater degree. And this is easier said than done. I mean, I'm not very good with getting this camera and all the rest of it in the right position so that you can see. It's I think that's about the best I'm going to do. Let's make sure that's in focus. Okay, so what I'm going to try and do is basically start off by tinning these pads and then offering up the LED to the pad like that. So just a little bit of solder. That iron doesn't seem very hot to me. I guess it must be. It's been running for long enough now. So what I need to do is get my LED, make sure the orientation's right, and then offer it up. And that, hopefully, is soldered. So I just need to now try and... The problem with this is always the case that, you know, holding the iron too long against the LED can damage them, as I understand, so which kind of makes sense. So I'm gonna... Once you've got one of the pads in position, the others should be relatively straightforward. Ooh, I've got solder dancing around all over the place at the moment. I'm hoping you can see this. If you can't, this is going to be a very boring video. Right, so that is basically how I solder these little LEDs. Let's get this out of the way, bring the camera down a bit. And let's have a look at this, see if I've made a complete hash of it or not. That side looks okay. I'm not convinced about that one, so just reflow that a little bit. There we go. Oh, now I've made a bridge. Okay. It happens. It happens. So, like I say, hopefully I'm not wrecking the LED with all this damn heat on it. And let's see if we can suck up some of that excess. Let me cut it off a bit easier. Suck up some of that excess solder. This is so difficult with a camera there. I don't think I've got it, but oh, might have done. What I need to do is get the old jeweler's loupe and have a good look at it. I really recommend you get one of these. This is a, what's the magnification of this one? 10 times. And they are really useful for just inspecting. Actually, I wonder if I can, or if we can do this together. That might be okay, actually. We've got a bit of a rogue soldered piece of solder just there. You can see with my finger here just how tiny this is. I mean, it is really difficult. You can see how close the pads are to each other. And I think I might have got that a bit off centre as well. Let me have a quick look under the old jeweler's loupe directly. And ooh, getting these things to stay in your eye is a joke. I think that's okay. So yeah, you can see how messy, frankly, it is to solder these when you haven't got. I do have a hot air gun, I have to admit, but I haven't really used one before. I did buy it; they're quite cheap. But you know what? If I can use the soldering iron, I prefer to use the soldering iron. So you can see how I got that one on there, which was not the easiest job in the world, I have to admit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the others on, see if I can make a better job of those. It's so difficult with a camera, and you're trying to get the camera and then you're trying to get the old magnifying glass in at the same time. It just is very difficult. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do all the other LEDs, and when I've done that, I shall get back to you. Okay, so all the LEDs are installed. Not very pretty, but I think they're okay. I will power this up before we construct the rest of it, which is really once we've got the chip and the resistors in, then that's all the electronics done. There's not much to this at all. So I think we'll do the chip next. But also, I did have a spare. They give you a spare LED. So if I have screwed up one of those LEDs with too much heat or something like that, then hopefully, if it is the case, only one of them is damaged, and I can replace it. Let's get this chip out, and hopefully this will be considerably easier than
the LEDs, which frankly were a nightmare. I don't remember them being that difficult, to be brutally honest, but there you go, they were. Right, so with the chips, just going to put a dab of solder on pin 1, and then get my... so I keep on knocking the camera because I've got it quite low and close to the kit. So we're going to then place... I just want to bring this over a little bit. Place the chip in position, and then offer it up to that pen, and I'm just wondering if I need to I think that's about right. And press down on it. Reheat that. I just make sure that the pens are flat against the board, and I'm going to twist that around just a tad, like that. Just to get the pens as lined up as I can to the other pads. I think that'll do it. Okay. Now if I can improve the lighting a little bit, refocus the camera, we might even be able to see what goes on when I solder the other legs. I think I'll actually start from this side. And just let the solder flow into those pens. Like that. Camera's shaking. Oops, didn't do a very good job of that. Now I've got a blob. Don't like having blobs. Got a blob, get rid of it. Blobs are not your friend, in my opinion. You can suddenly get an excess of solder just where you don't want it. There we go. And the final on this side. And I think it's a fairly neat joints. They'll do. And also, of course, as always, with the orientation of these chips, you've got, this chip hasn't got a notch cut out of it, but you can see there's a notch cut out of the position and where the chip goes on the silk screen. But you just need to make sure that that dot, or that indent there, is at this end where the notch is, to make sure you've got the right orientation. Right, so there's me bit of sealed air. So much crap on this table. I just need to sort it out. Right, here we go, and same again. I'm actually looking. Oh, God. And my depth perception is all shot to hell because I'm looking at this through the camera. And to be brutally honest, that doesn't work very well. But once you get in the swing of it, just let the solder flow straight onto the pen. Last one. And there we have it. I think that is a reasonably well soldered device. Probably a bit too much solder if anything, but yeah, not bad. Okay, the next is the resistors, of which there are 3.
But the goodness of their heart, they have provided 4. Well, you can't complain about that. Again, these things are not much bigger than a grain of rice, so it's you're out of focus. Don't worry, I know. Hang on. Get there in a minute. I'm just trying to open these ruddy things in the packet. So we only need 3 of them. Here we go. There's 1, 2. Come on, 3. And they are absolutely minute, these little surface mount resistors. I mean, these are normally installed on using machines, so the human hand wasn't designed for these sorts of things, in my view. But it's quite good and quite nice soldering them. I don't mind surface mount components. I quite enjoy the challenge. But at any rate, we're going to put a blob on one pad. Well, there we go. Behave. And that one. Right. Now we want a resistor. Like that. And we're just going to heat it up, offer it up, melt it in, press down on it, reheat it, and it clips down into place. So that connector will be good when we get to that side. And again here, heat, offer up. Oops, slightly off center, didn't really matter. Press down, reheat, and it clicks down into place. Ugh, made a bit of a mess of that one, never mind. And the final resistor. Let's clean the tip of my iron there. Offer it up, heat, solder in place, press down, clicks into place. There we go. Not quite straight, but straight enough for me. And now we just solder the other sides. Blob, blob, and blob. Ooh, there you go. You can see how the solder flows in naturally into place. He says as if he's actually knows what he's talking about, which he doesn't. And there, that pad there is for the switch, which is this guy here, a little push to make switch. So the principle works exactly the same. We put a blob on there. We grab the tweezers, offer it up, and then press down. So that one, the other pen should be nice and flat against its pad. It's not quite straight, is it? Do I care? Not really. And there we go. So that's the switch in place. Now the other thing to do is the battery holders. I think we can probably zoom out a bit now. The battery holders go like this, which the point being is that the battery will, no, they don't go like that, hang on a minute, they go like that. So you've got the opening here, which allows you to replace the batteries. But it also allows the batteries to fly across the room when you're spinning the damn thing, so probably want to put a piece of tape on that or something before we get too excited about spinning it. But the thing I'm most interested in at the moment is whether those LEDs are working. So let's get the let's get the battery holders into position first. All of these things, you get a bit of a heat sink effect. I should probably have placed it on the board first, then soldered it. Or a bit silly. There we go, it's going down. So, it probably wants to go across a bit actually. Ow, that's hot. So is that one? Yeah, it's almost in position. I don't want to get too precious about it. Hardly a precision instrument. And you can see that that tab is pretty flat against the board. So grab a piece of solder. I am going to zoom in this as again because I'm using the camera as a kind of magnifying glass so I can see what I'm doing. Yeah, it's not very straight, is it? Let's try and straighten that up. That's the OCD of me kicking in now. Heat up, heat up, heat up. Yeah, it's going to take ages to heat. That's it'll do. It'll do. The only thing I want to do is make sure that, there we go, it's as close to the board as possible. Ow, that's bloody hot. Why am I using my fingers when I've got a perfectly good pair of tweezers? Right, trying to spread that solder about a bit. I am actually making a bit of a pig's ear of this, I have to say. Frankly, that's probably enough solder anyway, that'll hold it. Hang on. Put a bit more on, why not? I hope you're not bored. But of course, what we're doing is building up to the excitement as to whether or not the LEDs will actually work, or whether I've completely cocked it. Ugh, this is a mess. You see how that flicked up there? Damn it. Ow, 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 ow. Right. Okay, let's see if I can do the other one without making a complete fudge of it. This time I am going to place it in position as neatly as I possibly can, and then solder it. Yeah, swine. Where's those tweezers? Right. And in a similar fashion on this side. I've given up trying to do it neatly. I think the technical term is I can't be asked. There we go. That'll do. It'll work. Well, that's a bit of a bold statement on my part. I don't know if it will work at all. Complete disaster. So technically, we've now got LEDs, resistors, chip, 2 battery holders, power switch. What we need now is a couple of batteries. So let me go and hunt some down. Right, I'm now armed with what I believe to be suitable batteries. So he goes knocking the camera again. So let's pop these guys in and assume I've got those in correctly, and let's see if it works. Way, there we have it. All the LEDs are functioning. Just having, some of them are kind of a bit brighter than others, but yeah, so that is working. I'm just trying to see if you can see the different LEDs within the chip. It's probably need more light on it actually to, yeah, there we go. There you can see the individual LEDs flashing away within the chip. But it's working. So press the off button, which is there, hopefully, refocus, and click, and off it goes. So the electronics are functioning as designed, so that's good. Now, the next tricky bit is this. That has to be soldered in to there. Now, with the last fidget spinner, I put a ton of solder around it. I actually don't think I need to put that much, it has to be said. But in order for this thing to work, you have to really put a lot of heat on it, because this bearing acts as a pretty significant heat sink. So I think probably, I don't know if it has to be about 50% the way through, something like that, I don't know. There are instructions, if you go onto Banggood for this kit, within the description there is a link for the manual. I'm just going to quickly check that and see how they've soldered theirs. I seem to recall when looking at it before, they just had a few blobs of solder around the thing, but I did a lot more with the old one. I put a lot of solder on it. In fact, if I bring it here, you can see the amount of solder that I did put on it. I mean, there's no way that's ever coming out of there. But perhaps that was overkill. So I'm just going to go and have a look at the manual to see what it says in terms of how far through the board the bearing needs to be, and also which way. Apparently it makes a difference which way up it is, whether it's like that or like that. Let me investigate. It's a nice bearing though, not brilliant, it stops fairly quickly, but yeah, it's okay when you consider how cheap these little kits are. It's not that bad. Right, back in a minute. Right, well, the way this works is it needs to be this way, so the open bearings, if you like, on the same side as the battery and the power switch. In terms of how far through the bearing goes, it's pretty much like that. The majority of it is on this side, and they also say to solder at 90 degrees, so you've got a blob every they say 90 degrees. So yeah, I don't know if, I think what I'm going to do,
because trying to solder that in place and hold it at the same time is not going to be particularly easy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a piece of tape, and I'm going to try and just put a piece of tape on the back just to hold the bearing in place, and then kind of manipulate it until I've got it roughly how I want it. That's looking, it's not looking too bad actually. I might run with that. So what we need to do now is to see if we can get one spot hot enough. And I don't think the tip of this soldering iron is quite pointy, so that means that the amount of heat dissipation, or the amount of heat it gives at any one particular point, is going to be reasonably suspect. And also the solder that I use is very, very thin, and you can see it's right there, but it's not melting because of the heatsink effect of the bearing. So I'll need it, having to hold it on there for quite a while. If I can just get one tack in place, which I think I might just have done. But you can see how long I had to hold the soldering iron in for. Now that's not quite right, but that bearing is very hot now. So with that one tack in place, I can try and eyeball it to level it up a bit. Wow, that's hot. Okay, just wondering whether I should be taking the batteries out doing this, but never mind. We might get explosions, that's exciting. You can't see anything now, can you? Right, here we go. Let's try here. Let's see if I can get another tack in. In the case of getting it to stick to the bearing itself, kind of easier said than done. As I say, this solder is very thin. Probably need some thicker solder, but although it might be thin, it's also quite easy to manipulate, or relatively easy at any rate. See, that blob of solder there is really struggling to melt now. Let's see if I can put another blob around here, roughly 90 degrees. Yeah. Let's do on this side. Let's have a look at the angle. Yeah, it's a bit crooked. Not great. Very firm now. I'm not going to unsolder it all. If it spins crooked, it spins crooked. It's not the greatest design. You would have thought there was a better way of clamping the bearing into the board, but I suppose if you start getting too sophisticated with special fittings or anything like that, then the cost of these things goes through the roof, and well, it kind of defeats the whole point of, you know, these nice cheap
evening project kits that are available in abundance on websites like Banggood. So the more that you put into them, the more expensive they get. That isn't very pretty. It's not very... it's hot. Yes, I'm an idiot, but you knew that already. Okay, I probably need a bit more solder. This extremely thin solder that I use. I'm going to put a bit more on there just to try and avoid any potential cock-ups, of which I am usually fairly familiar. There's a technique to this, and bearing in mind I'm probably never going to make another one of these. I'm not going to get too excited about learning how to do it, but I think it needs more than just 4 points, and I don't really think balance is, you know, weight balance is an issue with a bunch of solder around it. It's not exactly a precision instrument. So I don't think that's going to be too much of a problem. Just trying to build up as much solder as I can on each point that I solder it. I don't think I need to go solid all the way around like I did with the last one. I think that was reasonably sufficient overkill. There's very little on this side, so I need to do around here, that's for sure. It really is just a case of whacking in as much as you possibly can. Just to get a nice blob. That is going to be good enough to stick to the bearing. It's a little bit cautious, I suppose. I don't want to overdo it to the extent that it won't fit. I don't know how much of that you saw, actually. I wasn't looking at the camera there, so my apologies if you didn't quite see what was going on, but you get the idea. It is not pretty at all. But you know what? That's going to have to do. So the next thing to do is we don't need electronic components anymore. But what we do need to do is put the case on. And as always, this acrylic is protected with a paper covering, which is always a phenomenal task to try and remove. And there she goes. I quite like the idea that they make these kits with clear acrylic, because at least you can see the electronics inside. It just makes the item a little bit more interesting. Do you really want to watch me try and peel this off? I know that some people get a kick out of that sort of thing, so at the risk of upsetting anybody, I'll peel it in front of you. I'm not 100% sure. It should be fairly intuitive in terms of how this goes together, but I think you have to build up one side with nuts and bolts just to even up the 2 plates.
So I'm guessing.
How hot is that still? That's still pretty toasty. Yes, pretty toasty indeed. I'm guessing this one goes there like that. Oh god, that you can see just how bad I've made that bearing. It is just leaning to one side. That is not good. Oh well. It clips down on that. I'm guessing it clips down on that. It would seem sensible that it clips down like that. And then this piece would go like that. But it needs to be raised up because of the LEDs. So let me just double check the instructions so we get it right. Now, I've consulted the instructions, and what we have to do is bolt the screws down onto the plate first, which will give us the clearance, I guess, for the LEDs. I'll just do it finger tight for now. Can't overly bothered about being too sophisticated about it. And I will try and sort this camera out because I know I keep bashing it and it's shaking about and it's probably made you seasick now. And this one has a plastic nut and bolt for reasons best known to whoever designed it. Like I say, they just act as spaces to keep the plate away from the LEDs, so that'll go down there. Something like that, and something like that. And they just about poke through, and you can see the space there for the LEDs. So let's get these last couple of nuts. There really isn't much space there, actually. The screw, the actual screws are not flat at the top, which means that they are a little bit short when it's poking through there to try and, you can see how little there is. Just focus on that. Not hardly any thread at all there. Yeah, I think I might even strip that a bit. Oh well, that seems to be reasonably firm. Whereas the plastic one is a little bit better. Should be enough thread there to put that on. Get that down tightish. And finally, we have the two thumb and finger components. What will go through? Hang on a minute, have I done that the wrong side? Does it matter? I don't know. I go through the bearing like that, and hopefully that now spins. That is the completed kit, and that is actually spinning very freely, but that's not what we come to see. We want to see lights. So that's the completed kit. It's quite large actually. largish. So let's switch it on. We have lights. Now I'm guessing it would be better if I'll make it a little bit darker around here. Switch that off. Perhaps place it on the table. Yeah, let's place it on the table. Ugh, it's dancing about. Let me start again. Similar patterns to the other one that I made. It's probably exactly the same chip and program and so on and so forth. But the nice thing is this is easier to hold. Like that. And there we go. That is another Bangood kit completed. Another fidget spinner. I have to say it doesn't look very good on the camera, but in real life it's very pretty. Very pretty. Yeah. I wish I'd actually balanced up that bearing a bit better, because I've now got a bit of a wobble to it. Oh, and there we go. Yes, what's happened there? It's the battery. The battery has shot out of... there you go. There's no battery in there. And actually, they've both come out. There's one over here. Where the hell did the other one go? Oh, it's right. No, it isn't. I'm going to need some more light on the subject because I've lost the battery. Oh, well, there you go. Oh, there it is. Let's pop those back in. And that one. I'm guessing that, let me just try and get a piece of tape and put it on there like that, in the hope I'm looking for tweezers. I don't think this is going to work very well, is it? It doesn't want to stick, actually. It doesn't want to stick at all. That's going to... yeah. Alright, well, I shall have to... perhaps if I get slightly longer bit and then just fold it right over the top. I just didn't want to put it over the top because it spoils the look of it. Crikey, who am I kidding? It's not exactly important, is it? Okay, let's try again. There we go. Bash the camera. Upset everybody. There we go. Like, do it like that. We don't want to put it over the LEDs. No, that's okay. I'll just stop the battery from flying out. And do the same with the other one. Where is it? There it is. Again, you could say, well, they should have had a better mechanism for it, but again, that just whacks the cost of everything up, doesn't it? There we have it. Doesn't look very nice now. Didn't look very nice in the first place, but it looks particularly crap now, so let's switch that light off and have another spin. There we go. Try and give it one last big spin, and then I think we're done with this one. Ooh, there we go. Try and see some of the patterns. You can see the pattern changes as it goes along. I mean, for the tiny amount of money these kits are, they're not bad really. Somebody's put some thought into them, somebody designed them, come up with the ideas, puts them together and sells them for very little money really, all the way from our friends in China. And you know, that's an evening's entertainment, and to be quite honest, you know, you can go to a cinema ticket would cost a lot more than this, and that doesn't last an entire evening, and you don't have something to show for it at the end of it. He says, trying to justify why he spent money on one. So there we go. That's another Bangood fidget spinner. I won't be doing any more of these, but I do have other kits. And there's some other kits on the Banggood website which have caught my eye, so I will be ordering those. Personal life is complex at the moment in terms of being very busy, one thing or another, so I try and get these out as soon as I possibly can. But in the meantime, until we get to the next one, all the very best. Enjoy what's left of the summer. It's currently mid-August 2018. It's been very, very hot in the UK, but it's now starting to cool down, which is good because I don't do heat. But at any rate, as the autumn and winter turn up, then that's the time to do even more and more of these kits. In the meantime, all the very best. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.